you, and she's my chocolate chip. Danielle has been out of the porn industry since '08, which would be 5 years. 5 years, and this woman, she preaches the gospel all over the world. She tells the truth about pornography. She was just in the Bahamas lately. Barbados. Well, anyway, she preaches all over the world. She's got an anointing to actually preach the gospel. So God wants to use ex-porn stars to preach. That's cool. So he can use ex-porn addicts too, for those of you watching. You know what I'm saying? Let's just all do it. So I want to introduce Danielle to you, and I want you to give us a testimony and give us I want you to spend a couple minutes just saying, hey, this is what I was subjected to in pornography, and then how Jesus Christ rescued you out of that. Go for it, woman. This is my chocolate chip. Give her a big hand.
First of all, I want to give honor to God, first off. Second, I want to thank Shelly for taking the time out of her life to just give back so much, you know, because there's so many people, not just Shelly or Jenna or Jenny or anybody here. It's so many other people that get out of the industry and they never ever talk about it. We're not the only ex-porn stars in the world. Yeah. We're just the only ones that are bold enough to tell our story. So I want to thank you personally for all the work that you do with Pink Cross. I love it and I love you. Also, and I want to thank all of you for being here. It's Saturday evening. We could be doing anything, and you guys took time out of your schedule to be here, so I applaud you as well. I was a porn star. I was a stripper. I was a prostitute. But before all of that, I was a little girl. I was a little girl who, at age 8 years old, was molested by my babysitter's son. A little girl who lived in a dysfunctional household with my mother and father. I witnessed them beat each other until my mother had enough and divorced my father. But she not only divorced him, she divorced me too. And I stayed with my dad. My dad raised me, but my dad had a problem. Daddy was a womanizer. Every other week he had a different woman. He was very abusive to them. And as a young girl, witnessing this, I thought it was normal for a man to treat a woman like this. And it's very important as parents to watch what you do in front of your children, because they soak up everything that you do and say in front of them. And so my father was the first man that I fell in love with. He was everything to me. He wasn't a good man, but he was a great father. But he had a problem. He was schizophrenic and bipolar, and he was an alcoholic. And we all know you don't mix medication with drugs and alcohol. And my dad had a psychotic outbreak, and he tried to kill me when I was 10 years old. He beat me until he disfigured my face and tried to drown me in a bathtub when I was 10. 2 years later, I moved to LA with my mother. There was a neighbor who lived across the street, a man in his 40s, and because I was a daddy's girl, so I always took to older men. And so this older man would buy me candy and toys and games and stuff. And so when he invited me into his home, believing that this man was my friend, I went in and he raped me when I was 12 years old. Still never said anything, still never dealt with the pain at 8 being molested, never dealt with the pain at 10, what my father did to me, and still not dealing with the fact that I was raped at 12. A year passed, I'm 13. I met a 27-year-old pimp. I had sex one time and I got pregnant with my son at 13. I gave birth to my son prematurely and my son died in my arms. At that moment, when I was 13 years old, laying in that hospital bed, everything that I had suppressed at 8, at 10, at 12, and even at 13 had now surfaced, and I became angry at a God that I couldn't understand. How could God allow a young person to go through so much pain and turmoil? Because I grew up in church due to my grandparents. My mother and father were never really religious, but my grandparents were Christian, strict. And I was exposed to God, and I was in Sunday school, and I was in all the Easter plays, and I was, reading scriptures. And I couldn't understand why God will allow me to go through so much at just 13 years old. So now I'm angry. Now I hate men. I decided that moment that I'm going to just do me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. 5 days later, I turned 14 years old, and I ran away from home. I moved in with this older man who was a drug dealer and a pimp. And he used to beat me every night. He had money. And a lot of women stay in abusive relationships because a man is providing financially. And this man was providing for me. I'm 14. I'm living with him. You know, I have everything that I want. But he was beating the crap out of me. And one of his customers was a stripper. And she would come and buy weed and cocaine from him once a week. And she came to the house and she saw me all beat up and bloody, and she asked me one day, she said, "Danielle, why are you here?" I said, "Where am I gonna go? You know, I have nowhere where to go. He's taking care of me." And she said, "Well, if you think you're grown, you might as well get paid like you're grown. You know, come to the strip club with me and get enough money so you can get out of this situation." In her mind, she was helping me to get out of an abusive situation. And so I had a fake ID. I started stripping at 14 years old. Did that for a couple of months, and I realized that this wasn't the lifestyle that I really wanted. So I left that. 15 years old, I got back in school, moved with my grandparents in Compton. I moved back with my grandparents in Compton. I went back to school. I even got a little summer job. I got back in church. I used to love to sing, and I was in my choir. And I befriended a young lady in my choir, and my choir member from my church introduced me to prostitution. So at 15 years old, she was 18, and she knew I had danced before. And she said, "Well, I know you don't want to stay with your grandparents anymore. I have my own place in the valley. Why don't you come stay with me?" So I moved with her thinking that, you know, I'm just going to move with my friend. But she's like, "You going to live here, you going to get some money," you know. And so in order for me to get the money, I had to prostitute myself. Not only did she introduce me to prostitution, drugs as well. Cocaine and ecstasy were my drugs of choice. From the age of 15, 16, and 17, I was a stripper, I was a prostitute, I was a drug dealer, and I was a drug addict. While I was in the club, some porn stars came in, and I knew who they were. They were pretty famous, and they came in the club, and one young lady said something to me that changed my whole life. She said, "If you think you're making money now, you haven't seen anything yet." And so she gave me a card, and called her, and you know, I ended up going to the Valley. I met an agent. It was a female agent, and she looked at me and she said, "I can get a lot of work for you." And so I started doing porn a week after my 18th birthday. I was in the industry for a year and 7 months. I did about 50 movies, and I became miserable. I was suicidal. My weight went up and down. I was fat one month and I was skinny the next. I was miserable. I had everything though. I'm not gonna sit up here and say that the money was good, because I was still stripping, I was still escorting, and now I'm doing pornography. And I had everything materialistically, but I was dying on the inside. The Bible says, "What profits a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul?" And that's exactly what was happening to me. I was 18 and I was able to fly all over the world, and I was meeting celebrities, and I was at the best parties you can think of, around the best people, these lawyers and doctors and important people, and they made me feel like I was a celebrity, but they had no idea how miserable I was. When she said that we put on this fake face as if everything is okay, you know, we would smile when the camera turned on, like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so," and they didn't know that before the cameras came, I was in the bathroom crying and throwing up and sick. I remember my first scene, the guy they told me it was a boy-girl scene, regular scene, nothing out of the ordinary, but it's so aggressive and it's so hardcore, and it's no mercy. And I remember that night after we filmed, I went home and I soaked in a bathtub for hours because I was physically impaired. It hurt so bad. It hurts so bad, but because we have an addiction to the lifestyle, the fast money, the drugs, like you said, anything that you wanted, they'll give to you. Painkillers, drugs, alcohol, anything to keep you there so that they can make this film and make this money off of you. And I stayed there. Although I never caught a disease. It wasn't nothing but the grace of God. I've never caught a disease, but other young ladies that I was with were catching herpes and gonorrhea in the eye and the throat and the anus. It was just so much. I saw so much. A young lady I had talked to, she had showed up to the porn convention in Vegas, and she said that she had caught HPV, herpes, and HPV. I'm like, "Are you still coming to the porn convention?" I mean, like, you're not, you know, it was just so much that I saw. These young men, a lot of them are homosexual men, and they're sleeping with women for the money. It was a horrible experience. I never was happy with my lifestyle as a stripper or a prostitute, but I dealt with it. Till I got into pornography, that's when it really hit me. That was the worst time of my life. Now, I'm not trying to say that stripping is better or escorting is better, but pornography nearly killed me emotionally. No, I didn't catch anything, and it wasn't nothing but the grace of God that I can sit up here with women that I did the same things with, and yet, you know, they have been affected by it sexually. I haven't, and I'm just one out of a million, because every other young woman or young man that I talk to has caught some type of STD, whether it's curable or incurable. But I haven't. But I did catch so much other things, the emotional part of it. When she said you do one movie and it follows you the rest of your life. I went somewhere and I tried to changed my life. I tried to start over. Shelly said she, you know, was the cupcake queen. Nobody knew, but I can't say that for me. Everybody knew. I tried to change my life. I tried to change my look. I tried to move somewhere else, and it followed me. So no, I don't have any sexual damage from it, but I have the emotional damage from it. Every time you view porn is so damaging to your spirit, and it changed the way that you view women. I talk to men all the time, and they say, well, what's wrong with it? I said, can I ask you an honest question? I asked this one guy, I said, when you watch pornography, do you have a woman? He said, yes, I have a fiance. I said, now when you watch the pornography, do you want her to do what it is that you saw? And he said, yes. I said, that's the problem right there. Don't tell me that you're not affected by it when you know that you are. It has a negative effect, and some people look at it, it's just sex. It's not a big deal, but it really is. You have no idea what these people that you're viewing are going through. Every young lady that I met in the porn industry come from a damaged background. Every last one. No, I've never met anybody in the porn industry who grew up with both parents and they went to college and they grew up in the suburbs and they had everything and then they just decided, I'm going to be a porn. No. Everybody has a pimp, or they were prostitutes before, they were strippers before. It was just something. They were drug. It's just something. Everybody's on everything. Never met anybody sober, whether it was drugs or alcohol. Everybody's addicted to something. And if porn is so great, why did we have to poison ourselves just to do a scene?
Yep. Amen.
Every time we showed up somewhere, we have to sniff I was addicted to cocaine and ecstasy. Everywhere I went, I had to pop a pill or sniff a line of coke. But porn is so great. I'm so happy. I'm Queen Bee. Hi. I love my job, but I'm high. I don't have to do any type of drugs now because I love what I'm doing.
Amen.
When you love what you're doing, you don't have to poison yourself in order to do it. You don't have to alter your personality or anything like that. When you enjoy, when you really enjoy, if you're a teacher, you're not going to get high in order to go into that classroom.
Yep.
Because you love what you're doing. We had to get high, we had to get drunk, we had to do some shoot up. I seen young girls, 18 years old, still in high school. I was technically a high school student. My birthday's in February. You don't graduate till June. I was doing porn in March. So I was technically a high school student.
Wow.
Young women. One of her scenes, you said the gangbang scene was horrific. I had one that I'll never forget. We did an orgy scene. It was about 16, 17 people, and we were on set for 12 hours. Could you imagine having sex for 12 hours? You're tired, people are bleeding, and it was disgusting. It was disgusting, but I stayed because I was addicted. I felt like I was somebody. I had so much low self-esteem about myself until I got into the porn industry. Now you're somebody. Now you walk down the street and, oh, you're so-and-so, and you start to feel some type of way. I'm important, I'm known, I'm special. No, you're not. Just a piece of meat that people like to see. Yep. And that's it. I ended up getting out the industry. The way I got out of the industry, I traveled to New York. Like she said, you travel, you go different places. I ended up in New York, and I ended up with this psycho. He locked me up in a basement, and he beat me, and he was into voodoo, so he chanted over me, and he raped me every day, and he said, you're not going to leave here, I am going to kill you. And because I had been in situations before, I had been raped, I've been stalked, guys follow you home, all kind of things like that, but this time I knew without a shadow of doubt that this man was going to take my life. I'm in New York by myself, 19 years old, no family, no friends, no enemies, it's me and him, and this man is telling me, I am going to kill you. It just was a matter of time. He was getting off on the fact of seeing me tortured, and then I knew he was going to cut me up and bury me in his backyard. I already knew that. But because I was a Christian and I never left church, Shelly said she didn't go to church. I stayed in church. And then when I left church, I went to the pole or went to go lay with some guy, but I never left church. I knew I was wrong. I was in there shouting and crying and knowing I'm doing wrong, but I just never could leave. And it was actually a good thing, because while I was in that basement, something in me said, pray. And I prayed like I never prayed before. And I said, God, if you get me out of this, I'll change my life for you. Just don't let me die. I don't know about you, but we get in so many situations and we ask God, get me out, get me out. He gets you out and then you go right back to it. And I'm guilty of it. I kept going back. I'll get out of the industry for about a month or two. Then I'll go back, or I'll stop dancing for about 6 months and I'll go back. And I think this was a time that I was so serious with God and with myself. I said that I am going to die. That man would leave me in the basement for hours at a time. And I just had time to reflect over my life. And I said, your bad decisions got you in this position. You can't blame anybody. Yeah, I had a bad upbringing. I had a bad childhood. But Danielle chose to do pornography. Danielle chose to prostitute herself and be a stripper. So now because of those decisions, I am about to lose my life. And I said, God, if you give me another chance, I'll change my life for you. A few days later, a guy came to that basement and saw me. His friend came to the basement looking for him and found me. And was like, oh my God, why are you in here? What's going on? And I told him what happened. I got out of that basement in New York. I flew back to LA in 2008, and I never looked back ever again in my life. The porn industry will kill you. It will kill you. One bad decision can ruin your whole life. And it's nothing but the grace of God while we made it out. Whether if you came out diseased, if you came out broken, if you came out with emotional damage, you came out. And we couldn't have did it on our own. I couldn't have did it on my own. It wasn't nothing but God and God alone. So I will go around the world declaring what God did for me. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because I was in that basement alone by myself. And I said, God, I didn't call nobody else. I didn't call my mother, my father. Lord, if you get me out of this. And I know without a shadow of doubt that he heard my cry. He heard my prayer and he answered it. And that's why I'm here to stand before you along with these other young ladies and young men who can tell their stories. And so that's just a little bit of, we can go on and on about the things that happen in the porn industry, but that's just a little bit of it. And I'm so grateful to see your faces and just to be able to sit back on this end of life and to say, we came out of it. We made it. Because there's so many other people who can't say that. I know so many girls, I'll say this and I'll wrap up. She wasn't a porn star, but she was a prostitute. I was 17, she was 16. She decided that she was going to prostitute herself one night just to get enough money to get a plane ticket to go to her family or something like that. She went out there. She called me. She said, well, where can I go? Well, I'm in the Valley at this time. Where can I go to go get some money? I told her, go on Sepulveda. I haven't heard from her. I didn't hear from her for a few days. And then maybe like 2 weeks later, someone said, hey, you remember Corey? I said, yeah. They found her dead in the back of an alley. Somebody slit her throat and left her naked in an alley. One bad decision cost her whole life, and I couldn't understand how God allowed me. All the things that I did to him, I spit in his face and I pierced him in his side over and over again, and yet you allowed me to come out of it and share my story. How can I not tell the world how good you are? So many other women have done the same thing, and they are not here anymore. They are not here. I'm here, and I'm here for a reason. Shelly made it. Jenna made it. Jenny made it. All of these other people, Sal made it, because they have a story. God has a plan for each and every person in this place. Yes. And so it's up to you to be bold enough to share your testimony, whether it's a porn addiction, whether it's sex addiction. It doesn't have to necessarily be pornography. Just anything God can bring you out of it. And we're just a few witnesses, a few faces of what God can do. So God bless you, and I thank you so much for coming out.
You rock. No, you rock. want to introduce you my and 08, which would be 5 years. 5 years. And this woman, she preaches the gospel all over the world. She tells the truth about pornography. She was just in the Bahamas. That's cool.
The industry, and they never ever talk about it. We're not the only ex-porn stars in the world. Yeah. We're just the only ones that are bold enough to tell our story. So I want to thank I was appointed. I want to thank Shelly for taking the time out of her life to just give back so much, you know, because some people, so many people, not to tell our story. So I want to thank you personally for all the work that you do with Pink Cross. I love it and I love you. Also, and I want to thank all of you for being here. It's Saturday evening. We could be doing anything, and you guys took time out of your schedule to be here, so I applaud you as well. I was a porn star.